I was going to go to Viktor Frankl,
Hmm.
but I'd like to pull a hard left.
Oh, it's a dangerous thing.
It is a dangerous thing, especially depending on the country you're in, especially. Uh, and we'll come back to Viktor Frankl because I would like to ask
Sure.
about him. But first, I'd like to go to Aldous Huxley and possibly Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh, yeah.
I was interested to see Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas by Hunter S. Thompson on your list of suggested books, and Island or The Island. I don't know if there's a the in the title by Aldous Huxley. And going into or down the rabbit hole uh, with your videos and interviews, I noticed that you seem to have quite a familiarity with the research done by Rick Strassman with intravenous NN-DMT, and also the psilocybin research at Johns Hopkins with Roland Griffiths, Matt Johnson, and their entire team. But in the clips that I've seen, there isn't really a lot of context. There's snippets that I've found.
Hmm.
What has been the context for introducing those to your classes or in your lectures?
Well, I did my PhD in alcoholism, so psychopharmacology. I mean, I've got a PhD in clinical psychology, but my research was for years, 8 years, 9 years, was all drug and alcohol abuse. I concentrated on alcohol, but that was okay because alcohol is like water. It crosses the blood brain barrier like water. It bathes every cell. It has polysystemic effects. And so if you study alcohol from the psychological and pharmacological perspective, you have to learn the function of the systems that all drugs affect. All drugs of abuse affect fundamental motivational or emotional systems. That's why we take them. Although with the hallucinogens, it's more complex, like the benzodiazepines and barbiturates and alcohol, they're anxiolytics. They reduce anxiety. Alcohol also has a dopaminergic effect for some people, kind of like cocaine or amphetamines. There's the analgesics like heroin or cocaine. Cocaine is also analgesic. So, well, the psychomotor stimulants are analgesic as well. But the big categories are pain relieving, anxiety relieving, and psychomotor stimulant. And most drugs of abuse fall into those categories. And then there's the hallucinogens, which are their whole other universe. And so I'm well versed in psychology of and the physiology of drug and alcohol use. And so that's the context. That's part of it, anyways. I'm also interested in religious experiences, and for one reason or another, and it's a bottomless mystery, there are agents that reliably produce religious experiences. And no one knows what in the world to do about that. That's for sure.
There's a study ongoing at Hopkins also that's looking at the effects of serotonin 2A agonists like psilocybin's effects on worldview of religious leaders of different faiths, which
Oh, is that right? And how are they doing that?
well, they're doing it with, as I understand it, administration, probably 30 milligrams of synthetic psilocybin.
Wow. That should definitely be illegal.
Should be illegal or illegal?
Well, it's no wonder it was all made illegal. I mean, it's Pandora's box.
In what respect? What would your concerns be with that particular Pandora's box?
Well, look what happened when psychedelics were introduced into the culture in the 1960s. It was revolutionary. No one knew how to regulate or control it. And I don't mean control by clamp down. I just meant no one knew what to do with it. I mean, it knocked Timothy Leary off to the sideways. And I had Timothy Leary's old position at Harvard.
Okay.
He had the same position as me. Yeah, so that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think the social dynamics are very different in the sense that yes, there are a lot of risks, psychological, in rare cases, physical, uh, with psychedelic use. But I'm very involved with the phase 3 trials, both for psilocybin and MDMA assisted psychotherapy, quite separately.
Is Griffiths running that?
Griffiths is involved, so they
Mhm.
would be one site for the phase 3 trials.
Yeah, well, he's a real scientist.
He's great. He's a close friend, and
I met him at a conference on awe.
he's an excellent scientist with a lot of exposure to psychoactives, expert in caffeine metabolism and all things caffeine, among other compounds. Uh, I mean, you've spoken in the videos I've seen, at least, of the changes in openness.
Yes, they're pronounced.
Would that not be a positive thing if that is a consequence of opening Pandora's box?
Depends on how neurotic you are. No, I mean it
Oh, with
technically. This is
yeah.
the technical
Okay.
discussion. Openness isn't much fun if you're high in neuroticism
All right.
because you continually undermine yourself. Like openness is creativity, but let's not be all Pollyannish about this. There wouldn't be variation in creativity if it wasn't dangerous. There's lots of people who are very low in openness, and there's a reason for that. Now, it has advantages. Open people occupy a particular niche. They're on the edge.
Jordan, would you mind defining openness in this particular context?
Sure. Well, people who are open, there's creativity essentially. Creativity and verbal fluency together make up openness. Now, it's also associated with verbal IQ. So it's the one. There's 5 personality traits: extroversion, it's positive emotion; neuroticism, that's negative emotion; agreeableness, that's compassion versus predatory aggression, something like that; conscientiousness, that's dutifulness, orderliness, and then openness, which is um, intellect, interest in ideas, and creativity. And you might think the more of that, the better, but no, that isn't how nature works. So, you can undo yourself by being open. People who are open have a hard time catalyzing their identity because they're so protean. They shift shapes constantly. They're interested in everything. It makes it very hard for them to pursue one thing. And
Yeah.
my observation is that if people are high in negative emotion, so they're prone to anxiety, for example, then being open can be a curse because when you expose yourself to something that's unknown, the extroversion and openness can drive you forward as a function of curiosity and engagement. But the uncertainty is also the uncertainty you pay a price for physiologically, because when you face something uncertain, your body, like when you're angry, your body has to prepare for anything, and that's expensive and physiologically demanding. And open people, they flip things upside down all the time, and that's dangerous. Like, it isn't like it's not necessary, don't get me wrong, it's necessary. This chapter I made allusion to, I said don't casually criticize social institutions or creative achievement. I picked those phrases very carefully. We need social institutions, but they become corrupt. And so we need creative revolution, but it can get out of hand. And so there's this constant war between the strictures of tradition and the transformation of creativity. And you can't say who's right. You can just talk it out.
Yeah.
But what, the psilocybin, you take one dose and have a mystical experience, and you move from 50th percentile openness to 85th percentile with one dose. It's a major neurological rewiring. It's stunning. It's stunning. And you could say, well, that I'm sure there are things about that are good. But Jung said, beware of unearned wisdom.
It's a good quote.
It
It's a
is a
good quote. I
good
mean,
quote.
yeah, yeah.
Jung really puzzles me because it's never clear to me how he knew the things he knew. And that's one really good example of that.